Well, Petra, we just finished the last session, so I'm just waiting for others to come in. But we had a great presentation, and so
I was there. I made it back.
wonderful.
I'll just see. Wrote something down to remind me what I was going to say. So.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, I see quite a number of individuals are still joining, but in the meantime, I'd like to introduce Petra Christmann, who is a professor and vice dean for faculty affairs and research at Rutgers Business School. And we're also delighted that one of her areas of focus is actually corporate social responsibility. And so she has a long history in this space and has been a fellow of the Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation. And so thank you, Petra, for your support and for your thoughts on the day. We're really looking forward to hearing them.
Well, thank you, Noah. And thank you to the Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation for organizing this insightful and timely conference, and for all the speakers for giving their time so generously. That was really fantastic. So let me I don't have slides, I'm supposed to wrap it up here. What I found in the day is that there's really a complex maze. Gina started off with his 17 sustainable development goals, right? CSR is a multidimensional construct, and I think it's a real challenge for firms to figure out what to do about it, right? The other thing that even contributes more to the complexity is the stakeholder interests that are very diverse. Josiane, mentioned their internal, external stakeholders that have different goals, different preferences, and there might be even conflict within the same stakeholder group, as she had the example of Colin Kaepernick and Nike, and how some customers are supportive and others not. And that makes it really, really difficult for companies to figure out what to do. And even making it even more complicated is the fact that measurement is very complex. Danielle and Ushma and Jacqueline were focusing on just the measurement of something that seems pretty simple, waste, right? But apparently it's not that simple. And so measurement issues, do we even know what firms are doing? Is there enough transparency is another complicated standard. And so to disentangle all of that, we need a really nuanced understanding. And I think the challenge for firm here comes from that is, what issues should firms decide to focus on, right? There's 17 goals. Should they address all of them a little bit? Should they focus on specific goals, right? Is it, and how does what they should address differ across institutional environments and across culture? So some of these papers really touched on culture and how culture affects different perceptions of stakeholders, right? So those are really real challenges for business. And what are the most appropriate strategies given different cultures, different institutions? We had a paper in the morning from Dongdong Wang that showed that even in the same industry, digital platform industries, firms have different strategies, right? So we had some firms that in the same institutional environment in China. So we had some firms that were focusing more on incorporating CSR in the operations for the digital platform, and some firms decided to conduct CSR outside of the digital platform. Not sure which of these is the better one, quote unquote, and what even better means. I thought Robert gave a really inspiring call to action, saying that universities are best suited to address long-term problems and to overcome problems of short-termism that we often see in businesses and in politics. And so universities are really best suited to find solutions. And I do want to add to that I believe that business schools are uniquely positioned to conduct research that can help companies to address these challenges that I just pointed out, dealing with CSR. And business schools, I would argue, are also best suited to help identify mechanisms that lead to even more corporate responsibility, social and environmental responsibility. So one fundamental question that I think we should probably address a little bit more is what is actually the goal? How should we measure success of an environmental or a social strategy, given the multiple dimension, given the fact that obviously financial goals are also important. What is the best strategy? How should we evaluate that? What would be the criteria? And how could we help then businesses to design the quote unquote best strategy, given the cultural factors that they're facing, given institutional constraints, and maybe other external or internal factors. I think we really have to also look at the internal firm environment, resources and capabilities that may enable firms to be socially and environmentally responsible, and maybe some that hinder them from being socially and environmentally responsible. And so I think looking inside the firm is definitely very valuable. And you know, in the morning we had the study by Dong Dong, who actually did 4 detailed case studies, and I think that research is very valuable. The other fundamental question, other than can we help businesses, that I believe business school scholars are uniquely positioned to address is what can we do to encourage businesses to become more socially and environmentally responsible? What can we do to encourage businesses to become part of the solution, to proactively address environmental and social issues? What are some of the incentives that are that work, and some of the incentives that don't work? And so I thought there were some interesting papers here that address that. Narami Lee's paper looked at immigrant population and the effect of immigrant population on environmental performance, and actually found that immigrant population lower environmental performance of firms. So that is exactly the type of research that would help them. What could make that more effective? So one of the things that she found is that if the immigrant population is more aligned with the home country of the MNC, it can become more effective. Another paper that dealt with sort of the pressures and their work was the paper on shareholder activism. Promise paper, right, where she looked at a very, very detailed account on how shareholders work and what strategies shareholders use to influence firms and make them more environmentally and socially responsible. So I thought that is a very, very useful study to address the question, what can we do in terms of encouraging firms to become more environmentally and socially responsible. The final thing that my research is really interested in, and that I'm a little bit concerned about, is really this issue of transparency and measurement, right? I mean, obviously, some of you have identified the benefits of being environmentally responsible, external benefits, gaining legitimacy by satisfying stakeholder demands, maybe even lowering risk. Prami mentioned some kind of insurance-like effect. If something bad happens, but I have a great reputation for CSR, it's going to affect me less. And there's research to that extent that investors do take the reputation into effect when judging a company. And given all these positive effects, there's certainly an incentive for firms to misrepresent what they're doing. And how do we know that what firms communicate is actually what they're doing, right? How do we know that it's not just something, symbolic that they're doing, just the minimum, but then communicate about it, rather than something substantive where they're really improving their actions? So I think transparency is a really, really important condition for these external stakeholder pressures for social and environmental responsibility to become more effective. And so I think that would be another fruitful area of research, to look more at the availability of accurate CSR information. And again, it gets to the measurement issue and to the problem that I mentioned in the beginning. It's a multidimensional construct. Do we measure all the dimension? How do we weigh the dimension? If we measure them all, are they all equally important, or is global warming more important than local environmental pollution? And again, who is the sort of stakeholder affected by which dimension? So I think sort of that measurement issue and that transparency issue, I think, is going to be a big challenge going forward if we want to have more effective influence of stakeholders onto firms. And I think that's all I have to say. I don't know, does anybody have any questions, comments?
I'm Petra. I think that's a fantastic way to summarize the day in terms of the questions, the things, the framing, ways that we could take some of these ideas forward. So I really appreciate you bringing us all together in terms of, bringing us back to what happened in the morning and the afternoon. So thank you so much for that. Just want to remind everyone that tomorrow we have a big day, a day of practice with Rutgers President Holloway. We have dames from the United Kingdom. We have the Chief Sustainability Officer of EY. We have best-selling authors like Jeremy Hyman's and Andrew Winston. And so it's just going to be a fantastic day, a former presidential candidate of Iceland. So please do join us. I believe Deb has sent out the agenda for tomorrow. Even if you can just join for a session or two, we think it's going to be a fantastic day. And I also want to thank those of you who shared your research today and attended. Thank you so much for your insights and your questions. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you again.